Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with a pick of the week. But first, yes, we're doing it live in the morning, so good morning, everybody, here in the live chat. We do appreciate you being here. Last night I had some audio issues with the recording, and it was way too late. I got a late start, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to go live. So here we go. Good morning, everybody. But we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, issue number 1. This one took me by complete surprise this week. I wasn't really anticipating this one, wasn't expecting it to be something that blew me away, but it actually did. It was really, really solid. It's written by Brian Buccellato, and typically his work is solid, but it's not something that I've ever really been like, oh, that was one of the best comics of this week. But here it absolutely works. The voices of these characters, the premise of the book, the art is incredibly kinetic, and the dynamism of the dialogue as well really works in conjunction with the art and the story to really make a very scintillating, sizzling, poppy kind of book. The basic premise is this. It's about a dude who grew up in the 90s. It starts in the 90s with a really cool, fun conversation with him and his friends after watching Batman and Robin. And then it skips ahead to present day. This dude's 50th birthday, right? And he kind of feels like a failure, feels like he's never made anything out of his life. And then a lot of new things happen to him, and it starts becoming very overwhelming. And then all of a sudden, he discovers he's got superpowers. The artwork in this book is by Stefano Simoni, and the artwork is absolutely great. I like the coloring, I like the composition, but mostly what I like is that for a book that doesn't have a lot of action in it, between the dialogue and the artwork, it is a very brisk, action-packed kind of feel to a book, even though it's not an action book. It was cool, it was fun, I liked it, it was a big surprise. So for me, pick of the week, Midlife, or How to Hero at 50. I think a lot of comic book fans my age or a little bit older are going to really appreciate that one. Also from Image, we've got Haunted Girl, issue number 1. This was a pretty solid one from Ethan and Naomi Sachs with Marco Lorenzana on the artwork. I liked the book. I thought it was fine. It didn't completely blow me away, but it didn't suck or anything like that. It wasn't boring at all. It has a nice pace to it, and it's an interesting story. It's about this young woman who is now like haunted by these visions of ghosts or something like that, right? And it's actually going to be a part of some kind of like mythical quest and or duty. I liked it. It's a pretty nice, kind of heavy, but at the same time, a light read, though it does deal with heavier subjects. Perfect for the holiday season here. So I liked that one. Then we got Destiny Gate, issue number 1. This one was just all right. Didn't really win me over. It was a little bit muddy, a little bit clumsy, a little bit clunky. It's written by Ryan Cady, and it's about this, I don't know, it's kind of like whenever you're despondent or you're lost or you just feel like you're at the bottom of the barrel. You're at the lowest of the lows, right? Rock bottom. That's what I was trying to say, rock bottom. Like you're just trying to do that, and you wind up coming on this train, and there's these like entities there. So I don't know. It seems like it should have been cool, but it just didn't really ever click to me. The dialogue kind of held it back, stagnated it just a little bit for me. So this one I did not really like. Then we got Knights, issue number 1. Lots of seasonal appropriate number 1s from Image this week. Knights is about this world populated by vampires and ghosts and normal people, and it's kind of an imaginative world, and it's a little bit different and off-kilter from what we're used to. However, it just kind of didn't work for me. It was a long book, and I appreciate the extra pages. It's only a $5 book, and it's got a heavy page count. However, it just didn't quite work for me. The artwork is way too dark in certain areas. Let me see if I can find you a good picture. I don't know. For me, the artwork is just too dark in certain areas to really make out what's going on, and maybe that's the atmosphere they're going for, but I can't imagine that they wanted it to necessarily print this dark. But it's all right. It's got some cool characters, got some cool concepts, but it never really quite clicked together for me. All right, then we got Fishflies, issue number 2 here. When Jeff Lemire writes and draws something, we pay extra special attention. Fishflies is one of those books. Now, this book was originally supposed to be out last month, but there was a printing error, so they told everybody to destroy those copies. I know that some of those got out there on eBay, and some people paid way too much money for this book, because here it is in its corrected form, and it was awesome. I love Fishflies. It's about this small community in Canada, and every year these fish flies, these like locust, grasshoppery, fly, dragonfly type things, swarm into this community and cover everything, right? And in the first issue, this dude goes and he's trying to just, stick up a gas station, winds up accidentally killing a kid. He's on the run. He gets swarmed by these insects and turned into a giant fish fly. Then he befriends this like young girl who's like bullied at school, and it's really interesting. It's got some of those universal horror monster classic kind of vibes and feels. The artwork is absolutely fantastic. The story is great. The pacing is great. This is one of the best comics on the shelves this week. Then we got Scorched, issue number 22 here. Really liking this one. So She Spawn died several issues ago, but her slow return has now come back into full force. But something's off with her. Something's different. Something a little bit more malicious and evil seems to be inside of Jessica. This is her ultimate confrontation we've been building up to between her and Al, and she lays it all out there on the table. I had a lot of fun with this book. $2.99 cardstock cover. Spawn book, still some of the best deals in comics. Something Epic issue number 6 was truly something epic. I loved where we went in issue number 6. This has been a very creative and imaginative book, and it does kind of get held back a little bit by over exposition or just too many words on a page sometimes, but it's starting to clear up. But man, especially when you got artwork like that, you can just look at this stuff all day. But everything's kind of reached this point, and it's all just absolutely erupted. And this was the most balls-to-the-wall crazy issue of Something Epic yet. Something Epic issue number 6. I'm liking that more and more. Then we got The Cull, issue number 3. Kelly Thompson, Matea D. Ioulis, and Hassan Osman El How. I did not really like 1 or 2. I liked the concept, but it never felt like it fulfilled the scope. And in the second issue, I felt like the characters started acting a little weird, and it wasn't really quite consistent. It didn't really work for me. I almost didn't come back for issue number 3, but I am glad I did because I loved issue number 3. I thought issue number 3 ironed out all of the thoughts that I had that I didn't like about this book, right? Issue number 3, it raises those stakes. It widens that scale. You start understanding the true nature of what the conflict is going to be in this book. And the artwork is still really cool. And an artist that could easily come across as stagnant because it's so almost photorealistic, but almost also plasticky at the same time. But it works. Kelly Thompson's dialogue was spot on in this issue, and just the threads of the story, the way they erupted basically here in issue number 3. I really liked The Cull, issue number 3. Then we got Creepshow, volume 2, issue number 2. Best issue of Creepshow yet. Why? Because the first story is by Michael Walsh, who you'll know from The Silver Coin. The second story is from Dan Waters, who you'll know from great books like Lucifer, what else? Loki, what else? Seasons Have Teeth, Homesick Pilots, Limbo, some absolute fantastic books. Oh man, all the Azrael stuff recently. Anyway, the first issue, or the first story in this issue by Michael Walsh, that was a really great story. It feels like it would fit in the Silver Coin world, but it's definitely its own thing. And then the Dan Waters story, his use of language to portray this horrific tale that just keeps spiraling. I absolutely loved it. So Creepshow, volume 2, issue number 2. That's your Halloween pick of the week right there, baby. All right, then we got Kaya here with issue number 12. This is one of those self-contained issues. So Wes Craig, the creator of this book, what he's doing is every story arc at the end, they're going to do a self-contained issue that he says is not going to be collected in the trade paperbacks. Well, hopefully they'll collect the trade paperbacks of the short stories separately or something, because if you're only going to read Kaya through trade paperbacks, you don't want to miss this stuff. The main story in here is kind of about one of the villains of the series, and I think it's kind of important, and it kind of sets up where this series is going to continue on. Then it's got a Gabriel Walta story in the back that I really, really like. So it's cool to see a different artist take on this. There's lots of sketch material and like old school strips and stuff in the back. But that first story is absolutely great, and I love what Wes Craig is able to do with his knowledge of space on the page. There's lots of room to breathe, but there's lots of detail and there's lots of interesting things and even innovative things throughout the pages of Kaya. That's one of my favorite comic books right there. Jumping over to DC, we got Batman City of Madness, issue number 1. A Lovecraftian Batman tale that's kind of like Batman meets Stranger Things. So here's the premise. This is a DC Black Label book outside of continuity, and in this world, the Court of Owls has been protecting this portal underneath Gotham for centuries, and it's a portal to the Gotham below. So it's the upside down of Gotham, right? So think about that Stranger Things kind of vibe. And there's a dark reflection of everything underneath, right? Including all of the villains and including all of the heroes, including the Batman from below, right? So they've been trying to protect this portal to keep anything from leaking out, and then a very Lovecraftian Batman comes out, and it's going to be up to Batman to stop it. I loved this issue. The first time I read it, like a month ago before FOC, I thought it was just kind of okay, but when I had the physical artifact in my hand and read it, it worked and came out so much better. The artwork, first of all, it's written and illustrated by Christian Ward, and I really appreciate the color choices here. I really appreciate the composition as well. Absolutely love double-page spreads like that. The big moments hit big, and it's also kind of like a spiritual successor to Batman Arkham Asylum by Dave McKean and Grant Morrison. So it works that way. You got your Court of the Owls stuff there. You got your Batman Lovecraftian type stuff there. And it works for me. And that's a really solid Batman story for Halloween time. Then we got Wesley Dodds, Sandman, issue number 1. Since Jeff Johns came in and basically reinvigorated the Golden Age, it's the new Golden Age over at DC, they're doing this series of miniseries that's going to kind of just kind of build upon that, right? They got a Jay Garrick Flash one. They got an Alan Scott Green Lantern one coming out, and we're kicking it off with Wesley Dodds' Sandman. This is written by Robert Venditti with artwork by Riley Rosmo. I really do like the artwork. I really love the panel design, the page layouts. I think that stuff works absolutely fine. This book doesn't necessarily completely win me over. The interpretation of Wesley Dodds as kind of this like pacifist type character trying to create sleeping gas so that he can help end war without violence or death and stuff like that. It's interesting, but it doesn't 100% work for me. It didn't really quite win me over on this character, but the artwork was cool, and I'm excited to see where we go, and I really appreciate and like the idea of developing these Golden Age characters out further, especially with the new rules that have been set up by Jeff Johns. Then we got Batman and Robin, issue number 2. I thought issue number 1 was solid, but it didn't completely woo me. This one completely woos me. Issue number 2 was better than issue number 1. The artwork had more of a sharp edge to it, more of a kinetic quality. The colors popped more for me. The story worked better. The dynamic between Batman and Robin worked better for me in this one. I think it's solidifying the series, finding its own vision. Really interesting stuff going on here. Like I said, I love the artwork, love the colors. Could come across as very chaotic, but it doesn't. We have a new villain that's been introduced called Shush. Is there a connection to Hush? Probably. Plus all the animal-themed villains in Gotham are kind of teaming up, but a really cool story. I like the personal stuff between Damian and Bruce, and I like the big epic superhero-y type stuff too that they're building up. Green Lantern, issue number 4. Jeremy Adams is killing it on Green Lantern right now. This is the best issue of this series yet, and this series has been good from the start. Jeremy Adams had a really solid and consistent run on Flash. I'm really excited to see how this series is going to further develop, but in this one, you got a nice classic team-up between Barry Allen Flash and Hal Jordan Green Lantern, and it felt old school, but it also felt new at the same time. You also got some really interesting stuff developing between Sinestro and Hal Jordan, and just the mystery of where this new ring has come from. The artwork hits. It's a really solid, great, consistent DC superhero book, and that's all we can ask for out of something like Green Lantern. Then we got World's Finest, Teen Titans, issue number 4. Mark Waid doing what Mark Waid does with Batman Superman World's Finest, which is basically tell Silver Age type stories, or stories that would be set in the Silver Age too, but with a modern, fresh approach to it, and that's what's going on here. This is kind of like Teen Titans Year 1, but the real kicker about this series that makes it work are those character dynamics between the different members of the team. In this one, it's about a sleepover with Aqualad and Speedy, my bad, and Kid Flash, right? But the way Mark Waid is playing with these, instead of like back in the day, they just all kind of liked each other. Maybe they had little tiffs here and there, but nothing like what Mark Waid is building up right now. This is really cool. Like I said, classic feeling, but with a modern approach to it. But while we're also doing that nice, like, you know, sleepover story and delving into the character stuff, there's interesting things going on with the narrative that are building up into an ultimate conclusion for this series. All right, jumping over to Marvel. The Superior Spider-Man returns. This is a one-shot comic that is setting up the return of Superior Spider-Man in an upcoming miniseries. I believe that starts next month. So what this does, and it is essential if you're going to read that Superior Spider-Man book, I'm pretty certain. So what this does is it recaps the entire story of Superior Spider-Man. So if you've never read that stuff, and by the way, Superior Spider-Man was when Doc Ock had like put his mind into Peter Parker's body and became a better Spider-Man, right? It was trying to prove that he was a better hero than Peter was. It was a really great run, actually. So some of those artists from that run, Humberto Ramos, Ryan Stegman, they are back for this issue. You also got Mark Bagley in there. Giuseppe Camuncoli is on there. So the art's cool, and even though it's a bunch of different artists, it doesn't feel inconsistent or anything like that. But what it mostly does is catches you up on where Doc Ock is now, why he is where he is now, what was the ultimate, or what was the Superior Spider-Man stuff, and it also tells a tale from back in the Superior Spider-Man days that is going to lead into what's happening in the new series. So if you're going to read the new Superior Spider-Man series, you definitely want to pick this one up. It was an okay read. It wasn't the best thing out there, but it was very solid, and especially cool to see the return of Superior Spider-Man. That was some super fun stuff. Capwolf and the Howling Commandos, issue number 1. This is from Marvel Comics, and this was fine. It's a nice, silly, easy breezy horror Halloween themed type comic. Captain America teaming up with the Howling Commandos in the 40s against werewolves. Cap gets bit, becomes a werewolf. I mean, it's right there in the title. This is obviously referencing the Capwolf story from the 90s, which we covered here on the channel. So definitely check that out if you haven't. So it's kind of playing in on that. I almost wish that they would have just like set a story during the Capwolf era then, because this kind of takes the teeth out of Capwolf, or out of the Capwolf stuff, if you think that this happened to him before. So wait, like, so in the 90s, you tell me that wasn't the first time he became a werewolf? Captain America didn't learn anything from that? Anyway, it was interesting. Like I said, easy and breezy. It's not a super heavy book. It's kind of light, but it's a nice, fun kind of, I mean, it's Captain America in World War II fighting werewolves with the Howling Commandos. That's what it is. And it's pretty cool. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man issue number 35. Issue number 35, this is bringing an end to this whole arc where Kraven has tried to re-imbue Norman Osborn with all of his sins, because Norman's a good guy now because his sins were pulled out of him or whatever. Kraven's got him in a spear. He's trying to stab him with the spear to give him back his sins, but instead he accidentally stabs Peter because Peter jumps in the way. Peter's been infected with the evil of the Green Goblin. So he's just going crazy, puts on the black costume, goes after Mary Jane. Norman's trying to stop him. Kraven's trying to stop him. Everybody's trying to stop him. And this brings that to its ultimate conclusion. And it was cool and it was fine. And I've liked this, man. This book has been very inconsistent from Zeb Wells and company. The artwork by Patrick Gleason, by the way, in this latest story arc was great. They're also building up a little bit in a subplot about the gang war that's about to erupt. So they're building that stuff up while also wrapping up this Kraven Green Goblin crazy Peter story. But it works, and I liked it in the very last page. All right, next up, Moon Knight, City of the Dead, issue number 4. Why is it screaming at me? All right. Next up, Moon Knight, City of the Dead, issue number 4. This has been a really great series by David Pepose, who's playing around with the mythology and the mythos. Mythology and mythos, I think that means the same thing. David Pepose is playing around with the world and the mythology of Moon Knight and doing it excellently well. This is a story about Moon Knight having to go into the City of the Dead, the Egyptian afterlife or whatever, to save the soul of this young kid from a dude who's the avatar of... Who was it again? Anubis, I believe, right? So if he's the avatar, Moon Knight of Khonshu, then you got an avatar of, what was it? Anubis, right? All right, so I really like the ideas that are being played with here. But in this issue, it's a little bit more psychologically driven, and you got like Moon Knight kind of confronting his fears and his guilts and his failures and stuff like that. Typical things you would see in a story about a hero going through the underworld. Very hero's journey, but it absolutely works. This was a great setup to what's going to be an exciting conclusion to this Moon Knight miniseries. Then we got Venom here with issue number 26. been hearing a lot of hype on this book. Black Widow's got a symbiote now. I stopped reading Venom issues and issues ago, but I decided I'd pick this one up. It's a new writer. It's a new direction. Let's check out what's going on. And I didn't really like it. Just did not really like it. I thought it was okay, but it was a little bit clunky. It's written by Torunn Grønbekk, and I've never really clicked with her work that much, so this one just didn't really do anything for me. I don't know how Natasha got this symbiote. I probably missed something. That's my fault. That's not the story's fault. But I don't know. This did not, if they're wanting this to be a clean start, like not a clean start, but a start for somebody to jump in, it doesn't quite work that way. And it just kind of is a little bit held back in the script for some reason. I don't know. It didn't really quite work for me. But basically, Black Widow's got a symbiote now. She's teaming up with Dylan Brock. There you go. Then we got Blade here with issue number 4. Man, they're cranking these out, right? A different line artist on this one. So the line art takes a little bit of a step down, but the coloring is still there. That's right. The coloring in issue 1 and 2 was absolutely atrocious to me. And they have definitely corrected that here in the pages of 3 and 4. So even though the line art is not quite as good because it's a different artist here, Pinty, I believe. Where are the credits? There they are. First page. Valentina Pinty. It says with Elena Casagrande, so I don't know. There was something off about the line work, but the coloring was still there. The story's still there. The personifications and the characterizations are still there. Brian Edward Hill knows how to craft action sequences. He knows how to make an interesting story. He knows how to play with that structure. He knows how to deliver on something that we want when it comes to Blade. The attitude is there. The action is there. The vampires are there. And now the coloring is there. Blade number 4. Absolutely loved it. Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy issue number 2. Ron Mars, Ron Lim, returning to the world of Silver Surfer yet again. In the first issue, Mephisto, pretending to be Silver Surfer, convinces Genisvel to attack the Infinity Watch with him and steal the time gem, and then he gets flung into space, and Mephisto's like just doing devil stuff, like ha 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 ha. Then Silver Surfer shows up, Warlock the Infinity Watch trying to fight him. He's like, yo, what's going on? What you trying to do? So now he's on a mission with unlikely allies, but when it comes to Ron Lim, Ron Mars, and Silver Surfer, the unlikely ally is always the same dude. And I'm not going to tell you who it is, but his name might rhyme with Panos. But anyway, so now they have to go through time to find Genisvel, lost in time, by Mephisto's hands to rescue him and get the time gem back or whatever. Really cool, fun stuff. Very classic feeling. The artwork doesn't have as much texture and grit as it did back in the 90s, but the style has changed. The artists have changed. And I would like it to look a little bit more the aesthetic of the 90s. However, we're going to get what we can. We're going to take what we can get here. I really like that book. All right, from Dynamite, we got Army of Darkness Forever, issue number 1. This is from our friend Tony Fleece. By the way, Tony Fleece will be here live on the channel Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time. So get ready. He's going to be here to talk about this Army of Darkness book. He's going to be here to talk about Local Man. We've had him on the show before. I like him. I consider him a homie. So we're going to be very excited to have Tony back on the channel. That's going to be Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central Time. The Army of Darkness Forever. This is a direct sequel to the original ending of Army of Darkness. So the original Army of Darkness ending was not him waking up in the present day, getting back his job at S-Mart, and saving the day when the Deadites arise again. The original ending was he takes one too many drops, sleeps an extra 100 years, wakes up in like 2093 to a post-apocalyptic world, and he screams, "I slept too long!" That's the story. That's the ending that this story's kind of taking off from. But it's also taking off from the original from the theatrical ending. So it's playing around with 3 different timelines. Number 1, the original ending continuing, and then the theatrical ending continuing, and then the story in the medieval times continuing after Ash leaves. So it's a story in 3 different eras, 3 different times, 3 different movies seemingly, but Tony Fleece is able to bring it all together. I got an early look at issue number 2, and it really develops further there. This first issue is mostly set up, lots of callbacks to the Army of Darkness film, and if you're not familiar with the original ending, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or something. Just watch it. It's cool, and it will set you up perfectly for this. And you know what? We're giving this the cover of the week because it's Tony Fleece, it's Army of Darkness, and it's shiny foil. All right, then we got Garbage Pail Kids, Trashing Through Time, issue number 1. These Garbage Pail Kids books are just fun, right? Now, one of these books is not going to turn you into a Garbage Pail Kids fan, but if you already are a Garbage Pail Kids fan, you're going to really like this book because it's just big, dumb fun, or as we like to call it around here, gigantic moronic splendor. You're not trying to change lives and save the world with a Garbage Pail Kids comic, and the creators know that exactly. This is a follow-up to the Garbage Pail Kids origin series, so you may feel a little bit lost. They're flung through time. Somebody's changed things. Now, everybody's a Garbage Pail Kid, but I actually really liked it. Had a lot of fun. These books come polybagged, by the way, with new cards. So that's always freaking cool. I love Nasty Nick right there. All right, here's a big surprise for me. American Psycho, issue number 1 from Sumerian. I do like American Psycho, the movie. We covered it on Dylan's Horror Show for March Madness this last year. This is a direct sequel in comic book form of that movie, but it's playing with things a little bit differently. It's from the perspective of another character who happens to see what Bateman's doing, and then it jumps into like 2011, and it starts developing a story there. But I was impressed because it kind of gave me that vibe, it gave me that feel, and I thought that there was some clever things that were done with the structure and to subvert some expectations that we would have out of this book. That's not the page to show you. The art by Piotr Kowalski is really solid. I really like this dude's artwork. He did Where Monsters Lie. He did Join the Future. He did so many great books, but I liked it. It has the vibe. It has the flavor. It's got that satirical nature to it, but it's doing things structurally and through perspectives to like subvert an expectation of where you think the book is going to go. If you like the American Psycho movie, I would highly encourage you to check this one out. All right, then we got Operation Sunshine from Dark Horse Comics. This one was disappointing to me. It's a world populated by vampires. It's another one of those things. They're called bugs. Some vampires are like OVs. They're original vampires. They have all the powers. Then you have the people that are just turned. They don't have all the powers. This one dude who's like stuck in a cubicle is like thrust in with this like younger lady or something. It was kind of clunky. I thought the writing was clumsy. The pacing didn't really quite work for me. What does work is the artwork. The artwork by, it's Rubin, right? What's his name? David Rubin, I believe. The artwork is absolutely amazing. Whoa, he just got a mother effer there. The artwork is really cool, but the story doesn't really do anything for me, and I feel like the dialogue kind of hinders back some of the excitement of that artwork, so it didn't really work. Then we got Space Usagi, Yokai Hunter. This is a one-shot comic, and don't be fooled. It's not a Space Usagi story. It is a Usagi Yojimbo story that Space Usagi's daughter or something is reading in a manga in the future. So at the very tail end, it gets to the future to Space Usagi, but this is just Space Usagi in name only because this is just a really great one-and-done, spooky, Halloween-y type Usagi Yojimbo tale until the very end when you realize that, they're reading a manga and that's what's being portrayed here. I guess slight spoilers there. But don't be fooled, not Space Usagi, but a really solid Halloween, supernatural-themed Usagi Yojimbo story. They just launched the new Usagi series back at Dark Horse. If you've never read Usagi, I told you, just jump in there. But you can also just jump in here because it's a nice, self-contained, one-and-done story from one of the greatest cartoonists of the last several decades. All right, then we got Mom Breaks the Internet, issue number 1. This is from Scout Comics from our friend Jay Sandlin. So Jay, congratulations on the new book. It has an interesting premise. The president in this book has banned certain forms of social media because he doesn't agree with them or he thinks they're from it's very on the nose. Y'all know what we're talking about, right? All right, so the president's banning social media. There's all these young kids who are now part of techno-terrorism and they're protesting and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, one of the protesters' mothers works at one of these social media companies. She gets canned. She gets laid off. She's got a non-compete clause. So she goes, you know what then? Maybe I should go break the internet. Great cover from our friend Liana Kangas, written by our friend Jay Sandlin. Pretty interesting, solid concept there from Mom Breaks the Internet. And that's a really great title. Then we got Fungi. This is like a samurai tale set in a world of walking, talking mushrooms. That sounds badass. And then you look at the art and you're like, man, that looks badass. But then you start reading it, and it's not very exciting. It's kind of cliche, doesn't really work, overly silly, but also at the same time just has a mixed match of a tone for me that doesn't really quite work. But my biggest gripe about this book is the size of the print on the lettering. That's so freaking tiny. Now, I can read it, but I'm telling y'all, and the art is really cool, but the story just didn't do anything for me. But I'm telling y'all, a lot of people my age or above or slightly below, you're going to have problems. You're going to have trouble reading the words in this book. And I think that's kind of crap. But it's an interesting concept, really cool artwork, but it wasn't really quite executed the way that I thought would be a little bit more kinetic or whatever. I'm just saying the same words again. All right, I also want to show this Genius Animated. The cartoon art of Alex Toth is now available in paperback. This was a previous hardcover, but now it's in paperback, completing the 3-volume set. There's Genius Isolated, Genius Illustrated, now Genius Animated. And what this does is it collects so much stuff from the days of Alex Toth working in animation. We got stuff from Hanna-Barbera. We got stuff involving the Super Friends, Space Ghost, Shazam, all that kind of stuff. So you get storyboards, you get character designs, concepts, you get promo art. Oh my goodness, it is absolutely gorgeous. A really great treat to the eyes to see some of this amazing, pristinely reproduced. There you go. Here's some of the superhero-y stuff from Super Friends. It's really cool to see Alex Toth in this clean, reproduced kind of way. Like I said, seeing the ins and outs, the storyboards, the designs, and then towards the back, you start getting more like just fully realized images. Like really solid stuff. Color work from Alex Toth. Oh my goodness, this is gorgeous. I have all of these books now. Now that the third one is out. So if you're not familiar with Alex Toth, this is a cool series to get into. And even if you're only familiar with these animated series from like the 60s and the 70s, like it's totally worth checking it out. The book is absolutely amazing. And you can I would highly encourage you to pick up all 3 volumes of the Alex Toth stuff. All right, to recap. Fungi, cool concept, great art, just didn't quite land for me. Mom Breaks the Internet, great title, great cover, really solid premise. Then we got Space Usagi, a really great Halloween-ish type, not Space Usagi, but Usagi Yojimbo tale. Operation Sunshine, cool concepts, and great artwork, but it just did not quite work for me. American Psycho, if you're a fan of the movie, I would encourage you to check that out for sure. Garbage Pail Kids, if you're a Garbage Pail Kids fan, definitely check that out. Army of Darkness Forever, don't forget, Tony Fleece is going to be here on the show Friday, 2 p.m. Central Time. That's going to be a fun conversation, and I liked that book. Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy. When Ron and Ron are doing Silver Surfer, I'm going to be watching. Blade number 4, loving it. Coloring, continuing to improve. Venom number 26 was a little bit of a snore fest for me. Moon Knight City of the Dead number 4 was a great setup for a conclusion. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man 35, a decent enough conclusion to this story. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, to be honest with you. Capwolf and the Howling Commandos. It's not taking itself too seriously. You shouldn't either. It's Cap as a werewolf in World War II. Superior Spider-Man Returns was not the perfect return, but it was an exciting and welcome return to the world of the Superior Spider-Man. World's Finest Teen Titans, loving that classic vibe with a modern feel. Then we got Green Lantern number 4, best issue of the series yet. Jeremy Adams is killing it there. Batman and Robin number 2, Josh Williamson and Simone D'Amio doing a really excellent job of coalescing into how do I want to say this? Did a really great job of taking what was established in issue number 1, but actually building it further and tightening it up just a little bit, I would say. Wesley Dodds, Sandman number 1, doesn't really quite work for me, but I appreciate the effort. Then we've got Batman City of Madness. Really like this one. Lovecraftian Stranger Things meets Batman. That's kind of what's going on there. Kaya, one of the best comics on shelves right now. Creepshow, Volume 2, number 2, the best issue of this series yet. The Cull, number 3, big surprise to me. I almost dropped that book. Very glad I stuck around. Something Epic 6 was truly something epic. Scorched, number 22. That's a great cover, by the way. I love me some She-Spawn. Fishflies, number 2 is finally here, and it was totally worth the wait. Knights does not work for me. Destiny Gate did not work for me. Haunted Girl does work for me. It wasn't the greatest, but I did enjoy it. But the pick of the week, Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, issue number 1. Definitely worth checking out. Probably not going to be on many people's radar, but get in your shop, and if you can, check it out. And let me know what you think. You who are here live, thank you so much. You who patiently waited all night for this show, thank you so much. You watching on the replay, thank you so much. We love you. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. I've been rocking Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom!